Hi, and welcome to part two of my intermediate PowerShell tutorial series. Last time we took a look at how to create your own custom functions, and today we're going to be taking a look at modules. We're going to be taking a look at just how to see what modules you have available to you on your computer, how to download modules from the internet, how to create modules, how to install modules. Basically, anything to do with modules, we will be looking at it today. So let's go ahead and let's get started here. So the first things first is you probably want to know what modules you have on your computer, what modules you currently have loaded into your session, and where are these modules on your computer. So let's first take a look at seeing where our modules are stored on the computer here. So the first thing you can do, it's actually a variable default in PowerShell. So we're going to put our our dollar sign, and then env, and then colon, and then if you type ps, and then it should autocomplete to ps module path. If we run this here, we can see that we get a few locations. So we can see that my user folder here is the first one, and then we've got C program files, which is some modules that are going to be stored for all the users. And then we have the one in C Windows System 32. These are the ones that come built into Windows with PowerShell. So what we really do for the most part is we like to install our modules on the C for all users, um, or in your own user folder. If you do install it on your own user folder, it is only available to your user. So I usually always install it in C program files, Windows PowerShell, and modules. So if we want to go ahead and see what modules currently I have running in this PowerShell session, all we would do is get dash module. And if we just run this right now, these are all the modules that are currently running on the session. These are all default modules. Like I didn't import any modules so far. These are just the default ones that kind of come into PowerShell when you start it and when you have a default install, nothing installed. So if we want to go ahead and get the modules from all the locations on the computer, not just the modules that are currently running in this session, we can do get. So in our get dash module, we can do list available. And if we go ahead and do that, I'm going to make this screen a bit bigger here. So we can see that we get a lot of modules here, and it actually breaks it down by path. So we can see here that the only two paths that we have is just the all users path and then the Windows path, because I don't have any modules in my user profile. So we can see here in the program files, we actually have the PowerShell, we have some package management, we have the pester, which we will actually be looking in a different video when we start to do our testing units. And then we have just some PowerShell get, which actually lets us install modules and find modules. And then we have some more PowerShell ones. And then in our Windows, now this is where we have a lot of different PowerShell modules that you might be interested in. If you ever work with these pieces of software like AppV, BitLocker, if you have BitLocker Defender, DNS client, Hyper-V, once you want to start making some virtual machines through PowerShell, which I will probably be making a video on this PowerShell module later on. And then there's also the NetTCP IP, which is also probably a module you guys might use. There's also the Windows Update. I've written a few scripts using this module just to manage some updates. Some scheduled tasks is another module you might play around with quite a bit as a system admin. So let's go ahead and let's keep going here. So now the next thing we would want to do is once we know what modules we have available to us, let's go ahead and let's try to import one. So it's very easy to bring in a module. We just do import dash module, and then we can specify the name that we want. And let's actually just import the Windows Update module. So if we go ahead and do that and we run this here, we see that it just imports it. Not really a big problem there. And if we do get command module and then Windows Update, let's see what commands we got available to us here. So we really only get the get Windows Update log. So let's go ahead and let's see if we can run that here. Windows Update log. So if we run that here, we can see it's going to run quite a bit here. So we're just going to stop it. But we do see that we get some output here. Now there is a more in-depth Windows Update module that you'd probably want to download from the internet. We're going to see how to download those later on. But that module actually lets you perform Windows updates on your machine. And then there's also, let's say we're working with a custom module. You've imported the module, you notice that there's maybe some things missing, you go and update that module. If you go back to your PowerShell window that you've already had open and it had the module imported, you won't actually get those changes. So in order to get those changes here, we're going to do import module and then module, import module, and then name, and then Windows Update. And then you would do the dash force. Now this will re-import the module even if it is imported already. And then let's say if you wanted to remove a module because you just figured, I don't really need it in my PowerShell session right now, you just want to remove it, you can do the same thing and we can remove this module and it will unload it. And now if I try to run this commandlet, it'll still work, but the module should not be loaded anymore. But I usually find that it still works because it is a default Windows module. If it had your own custom module, that should not work. And we'll see that a little bit later on when we actually create our own custom module and import it there. So what we can do as well is we can create our own module, like I said. So what we're going to be doing here is we're just going to be opening up some new tabs in this PowerShell window here. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to create a module, a very, very simple module. It's not going to be super detailed here, just enough to say that it is a module. So we're just going to create a few functions here. We're going to get configuration, and then let's go ahead and let's just put some details in here. Commandlet binding, as we saw in our last video, just very simple commands, functions here. And we're just going to do a get configuration, set configuration, and we are going to do a remove configuration. I'm not going to put anything in these functions right now. I just want to be able to load them in, run them, and you know what? Just for the sake, let's do some outputs here, and we're just going to do get, and then set, and we're going to do this one as remove. And now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to save this. I'm just going to save this in another location for now, just for the sake. When you do save a module, you're going to want to create a folder that will have the same name as your module. So if you plan on naming your module configurations, which is what we're going to do since we have our commandlets basically named configurations here, we're going to name our folder configurations, and then we are going to name our PowerShell module configurations, and make sure that when you save as type, Make sure you save it as a PSM1, a PowerShell script module, and then we can save here. Now there's one last step. You could run your module just like this. You could import it. It would work perfectly fine. But as a Microsoft recommendation, we always recommend I say it as if it's me as well, but Microsoft recommends actually to create a module manifest. Now, I actually agree with this as well. There could be a lot of helpful details in this manifest. So at least when other users that might not have been implicated in building the module, you could put a lot of information, the offer of the company, some help links if you have a website that kind of details um, how to do certain things. You can put a help link on in that module manifest, and all that stuff is accessible through PowerShell. So how you would do that is just new dash module manifest. And the first thing you're going to want to do is put in a path. Now this path is going to be the path to inside of your module folder, and add one more backslash, and then we're going to want to name this configurations.psd1. This is a PowerShell data file for the manifest, and then you're going to have some other parameters to fill in. Let's put in the offer. Let's just put in my name here. And then let's put in a description. This is the configurations module. And then there's also a root module. Now this is going to be the name of your module. So we already have the name here, which is configurations.psm1. Now if we run this here, we get no errors. And then if we go ahead into here, inside of our configurations folder, we actually see that we have two files with the same name. We have a PowerShell data file and a PowerShell module. So if we go ahead and just open up this manifest here, we actually do see that it is generated by me. It puts the date in there. It puts our version. I puts in a GUID. It puts in your offer name, your company name if you would have specified one, a copyright if you specified one, a description. You could also specify a PowerShell version for the minimum version. You could put in a whole bunch of extra parameters here. You could declare what functions you want to export, what commandlets you want to export for this module. Um, there's a lot of different things in here, and then here is your help info. So you can basically put a link in here, and then they will be able to see that. It's just a very useful, more of a friendly thing to put in your modules. Again, it's not required, just recommended. So if we go ahead and close that here, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to just copy this folder, or you can do Control C. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go in my C drive, program files, Windows PowerShell, and then modules here. We're going to paste this module in here. And now if we go ahead and we get our module and list what's available, we are going to see now that we actually get a configurations module that's available here. Now, if we go all the way to the top here, the first time we ran it, we did not see that. So that's the module that we just put in. And we can see the exported commands. We can see the commands that we put in there, get configuration, set configuration, and then there'll be a remove configuration in there. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this module now. So if we do get module, and then we do the name, configurations, and then we do list available. we can see that we do get our configurations folder there. So let's go ahead and let's import the module here. Actually, before we import it, let's actually just try the commands here. So this will probably work because I do have it open in the same PowerShell window. So let me go ahead and let's actually just start a different PowerShell window here, just so we don't get that effect there. All right, so now if we do get configuration, it is in there, and that is actually because when we start our PowerShell, it automatically looks in those folder locations, so it'll automatically import them. So it's a little bit of a bad example in this case, but if we go ahead and let me just go ahead and delete that here. We have it in our other folder location. And we go ahead and we start another PowerShell window. We can actually see now that we do not have the get configuration anymore. So what we could do here is we can do import module. Now here we can actually put a path. So what we can do here is so if we put this path here and we import this module, we can see that we now have all of our commandlets, our functions loaded in here, and they do work. And then we can also do a remove module. And now we see that those commands don't work. But like I said, if you put that folder directly in that program files like we did earlier, so let's just go ahead and let's do that again here. Because PowerShell automatically looks in those folders, you usually do not have to import these. They will be automatically imported. They might not be actually imported, but PowerShell will be able to read the commands that are in there and then just kind of execute the code and pull it in when needed. So if we go ahead, oops, and back into this window here, we import the module, get configuration, we see it, and then if we remove the module, it still works because it's in that spot in the C drive where PowerShell automatically looks at the modules. So no matter what, those modules will always be loaded. Um, so if it's not a module you necessarily want to have automatically imported, maybe just don't put it in there. Put it in a different file location. Like maybe you would have a file server or a script server where your employees or coworkers can import modules from. I know where I currently work. That's what I have for some of my scripts anyways. I do have a module that kind of handles some stuff, and then we can go and pull it. Um, it's something that I would recommend to always modularize your scripts. Um, it is very good practice. At least you don't have to rewrite the same code over and over again. You can store a whole bunch of functions in a module. What I would usually recommend, and Microsoft also recommends, is to keep your modules um, at least related to the same thing. So if you have a module For configurations, try having all your functions only related to configurations. If you have on another module, have it all related to your own custom Active Directory commands or functions, have that as a module. Don't try to combine all your different functions into one module. That'll make one big module where the readability will greatly go down. And if you don't have to import the functions, why import them? So if all you're writing is a script that edits configuration files, you don't want to be importing every function under the sun that you've ever written that might deal with Active Directory or Hyper-V or VMware or Azure Active Directory if all you want to do is a simple get configuration. You want to keep your modules very, very specific, and this way you can import exactly what you need and nothing more and execute those commands. And that's really it for modules. You could easily also find modules online. A lot of modules are already pre-built. There's VMware modules. There's a lot of modules that people post online. There is a very easy commandlet on that there. You can do a find module and then name. And then let's look for something that I already know exists, which is the Azure AD module. So if we go ahead and we look at that there, now your first time running this, you will probably get this pop-up. I wanted to leave the pop-up so you guys can see it. This is just basically saying that you need the NuGet provider for PowerShell Get to download these modules. You can simply click on yes here. That'll install everything that you need in PowerShell to go ahead and go online and look for modules and install them. Make sure when you install a module that you are running as administrator. If you are not running as administrator, you may run into some problems. So now if we do the find module Azure AD, we actually do see that we get Azure AD from the PS gallery, and it is the Azure Active Directory module. And if we wanted to install it, we could pipe it to install module, or we can just do install module name Azure AD. And then if we run that, we get again a prompt, and we're just going to say yes to all here. And this is going to go ahead and going to install the Azure AD module on our computer. And it is complete. So now we do have the Azure AD module. So now if we do import module name Azure AD, we can import this module. And if we do connect, Azure AD is now there. So we are able to connect to an Azure Active Directory. And that is actually it for modules. So now you do know how to look up what modules you have on your computer available to you, how to import modules, how to create a module, how to download a module, and how to install a module. And that's pretty much it. In our next video, we will be going over some PowerShell remoting. I'll see you on my next video.